Hello, ladies. This is Leslie Tavernier. I'm a dark feminine love coach for women who are in love with an avoidant dark masculine man. And I help those women to have a healthy, secure relationship with such a man. And once again, I have with me here my dark masculine man, Rakem Sekou. Can you please introduce yourself to my audience?
Hey, I am Rakim Sekou, also go by Carl E. Stevens Jr. I am a metaphysician, a spiritual priest, love coach, etc. I operate a school called Pantheon. It's actually a community called Pantheon at pantheoncommunitycollective.com. And yeah, I enjoy supporting people and creating the lives that they desire.
Thank you so much, Rakem. So we're going to get right into the questions because there's a lot of them.
We're gonna get right into it.
Yeah. So, you may have heard the term sacred union or divine union. I see it used a lot on social media. A lot of women seem to be craving a sacred union, and I see a lot of coaches talking about sacred union or divine union. And from in my opinion, I feel that a lot of them are their definition of divine union must include monogamy, monogamous marriage, just two people only. So my question to you, Rakem, is do you believe that humans can enjoy sacred or divine union and be non-monogamous?
Yeah, absolutely. A sacred union is when two people come together and they love each other and they do that unconditionally and they support each other, they grow together, they develop their highest sense of self with each other, and they work through all the challenges in their relationship and they build legacy together. So, monogamy, that's just a relationship structure. A sacred union isn't dictated by the relationship structure, right? So it depends on the people who were a part of the union and the work that they do and what they decide to do in terms of growing and building together. Now, if those individuals decide to be monogamous and exclusive with each other, then that's beautiful. That's for them to decide, that's for them to define. If those individuals decide to not be exclusive with each other and to be open or polyamorous, then it also works. So it's not based on the relationship structure. Again, there's a desire by a lot of these influencers online to force people into a particular structure of relating, to put their particular spin on what a relationship should look like and how people should function inside that relationship. And that's just them projecting their own desires or their own insecurities, etc. But the reality is, a sacred union is up for the individuals inside that union to define.
Mm.
And whatever they define that to be, then that's what it is.
Thank you. Before I ask you my next question, I'm going to quote you. There was a exchange that I saw on your Instagram between you and another gentleman that I thought was absolutely amazing. So I'm going to read that first, and then I'll share the question. So the gentleman said to you, I was with a toxic woman, and I went to three different couples therapists to try and get her to understand that her ways of communicating was abusive. But each therapist, instead of focusing on her behavior, would tell me that I needed to learn how to find her buy-in to prevent the outburst. It's like therapists are trained to focus on the men and not the women. And you replied to him saying, correct, modern therapy is imbalanced by design. It starts with women being the victims instead of recognizing two autonomous beings with equal power in the relationship. And the gentleman then replied to you, why is that? It doesn't serve the women. It's setting them up to constantly be in this cycle. Men get called emotionally immature, while the women's outbursts are considered feelings. Why aren't men's feelings validated? And you replied to him, it has to do with the culture of monogamy, where men are considered superior. Men are considered the gatekeepers of marriage and the choosers of women. Men are considered dominant and the leaders. Thus, our culture, i.e., therapists, etc., wrongly see women as victims and inferior off the jump. This is where therapy starts and why most men don't trust it and decide not to go in many cases. As soon as men and women are looked at as equals in relationships, you'll see therapeutic approaches change. End of quote. And so, my question to you, Rakem, What are your thoughts on the idea that the way that a man cultivates his leadership is by being fully present with a woman throughout her full emotional range? So, from the most extremely negative emotion to the most extremely positive emotion, he needs to stay present with her, and that's how he becomes a better leader. You know, instead of what a lot of men do, especially dark masculine men, which is either give her the silent treatment or block her or leave the house, walk out on her, or in some instances even get violent with her. What do you think about the idea that a man should learn instead how to just be present with a woman, no matter what she's expressing, negative or positive? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, so we need to define the expression of the women, right? So there's one thing which is emotional expression, right? And there's another thing which is emotional abuse and verbal abuse. So we have to separate those two things. There's no issue with a woman being emotional and needing support and expressing herself in a very authentic and organic way. And the man, yes, in that case, should be present with her, should support her, should, hold space for her until she's able to, find more balance, or they're able to find more balance together as a couple, right? So, yeah, as a leader, as a man that is masculine, doing that is something that is standard. It's going to support his leadership ability. It's going to support a increase in intimacy between the couple. They're
Mhm.
going to understand that, hey, we can support each other through different sets of challenges, including the man being emotional or the woman being emotional or whatever it might be. And so that just brings the couple closer together. That's what really defines a sacred union, the fact that these two individuals are able to support each other and work together in that way. So yes, being present is very important for a man's leadership. The more he's able to do that, the stronger his leadership is going to become. Now, in
Mhm.
terms of the verbal abuse and the emotional abuse, that's a different thing. So we don't want to, you know, mistake a woman being emotional and expressing her emotions with her being verbally abusive.
Mhm.
So the man in the comment was saying that his wife or his girlfriend was being verbally abusive to him, and that's something that first of all is an issue, right? So
Mhm.
again, that's going to affect the man in a negative way. It's going to affect him mentally, it's going to affect him emotionally, and then that mental and emotional effect is going to have a physical effect on him.
Mhm.
So if you're in an abusive situation as a man where the woman is, talking down on you and disrespecting you, saying things that are tearing you down as a man, yeah, you can stay in that as a leader and be present with her and work with her. But at the same time, that requires a specialized set of training and skills that most people don't have.
Mhm.
How do I bring this abusive person and bring them down to the point where they're non-abusive, and now they're showing me respect, and now they're acting out of balance? It's the same thing if you were to ask a woman, well, I want you to stay connected with your man even though he's being physically abusive to you.
Mhm.
Stay present with him and work with him and nurture him until he's no longer physically abusive. Most women will look at that and say, well, that's not right. Well, yeah, it's the same thing on the other side. If a
Mhm.
man is receiving verbal abuse or receiving emotional abuse or receiving psychological abuse at the hands of a woman, then that's an issue. He's technically in danger.
Mhm.
And what most people need to do in that situation is seek support. Now let's go to the therapy part of it. Yes,
Okay.
the reason why therapy doesn't work and what the man was talking about in the comment is because therapy is also based on an assumption that monogamy is the correct structure for us to relate in, right? And
Mhm.
so what's the issue with that? Well, the issue with that is there's the culture of monogamy includes certain things. So it includes things like men being the gatekeeper of marriage. It includes things like the idea that men are somehow superior to women, that
Mhm.
a woman's body count somehow affects her ability to be a wife or to be a mother, that the man has a higher, intimate and sensual drive than the woman does. So we have all these false beliefs that go along with the culture of monogamy. The
Mhm.
issue is that therapists, they coach from that perspective, from that cultural narrative. And that cultural narrative is not right. It's imbalanced. None
Mm,
of those things are true. Men are not superior to women. Men don't have a higher sensual drive than women. Men should not be the gatekeepers of marriage, and they actually are not the gatekeepers of marriage. So, the fact that therapists kind of approach, coaching from that standpoint and therapy from that standpoint is an issue. They're not looking at the relationship as like these are two autonomous beings who are both powerful, who are both creating their lives, who can both take accountability for their actions, who can both contribute to the health and well-being of the relationship. And so, because they don't recognize these individuals in that way, the coaching is going to be skewed, where they're going to look at the woman automatically as the victim. Again, because that's part of monogamous culture, where women are the victims in relationships, and men are like the abusive ones, and they control marriage, and marriage is like their structure that they've created. The patriarchy created the structure, and therefore the women are trying to work it out the best they possibly can. And that those are false narratives. Those things
mhm,
are not true. And so when men go to get therapy from a traditional therapist, they can feel, the villainization
mm,
of them. You see what I'm saying? Like they can feel that they're being painted as the bad guy here, and that
mhm,
most of the coaching, most of the counseling is really about how the man can support the woman and being okay. A lot of her behavior is going to be looked past in
mm,
terms of the potential abusive behavior, the potential of her not taking accountability for her actions, those types of things. So that's what he was talking about in the thread. And a lot of men talk about that. In my men's group, men talk about the fact that therapy is often skewed, that therapy is often not really good. It's not getting to the heart of things. It's often surface level and not really getting to the deep issues that both of these individuals are having. And the issues that both these individuals are having is that it's their combined trauma, right, from childhood and from a young age that's coming together, that brought them together, and that they're working that out together. So these traumas kind of match perfectly. With most relationships, people's traumas tend to match perfectly.
mm,
And so, that's why you end up choosing the person that you're with. People think it's because you're attracted to them and they're beautiful or they're responsible or they got a job, whatever it is. But that's not really what it is. What it is your trauma is matching that person's trauma. And so there's a subconscious program that's running within you that draws you to this person. And part of it is so that trauma can continue to live and exist. But another part of it is that the trauma wants to be worked through. It
mhm,
wants to be, there's something within you that wants to work past that trauma. And so that comes out in terms of issues and challenges inside the relationship. And so these are all opportunities for us to work through our traumas and to, elevate ourselves to the next level. But that's what therapy is not really understanding. They're not looking at these two individuals as, equally powerful or equal people. They're looking at one person as like the abuser and the other person as the victim, or one person as the villain, the other person as the victim. And
mhm,
that's where it goes wrong. Like, no, both these people are co-creating their lives. They are co-creating their relationships, right? And so the work is, hey, to talk about how you co-created it, to get to the bottom line of, what the traumas are, what the triggers are, what the conditionings are that has caused you all to be in this circumstance and caused you all to react in a certain way. And then giving these individuals the prescriptions to work through these conditionings so that they can no longer be triggered in the same way. And so that's what modern therapy is missing. That's what it doesn't really understand. And that's what I
mhm.
was talking about in the comments of the guy.
Thank you. My next question is, how can men then differentiate between a woman being emotional versus being abusive?
Well, first of all, when a woman's abusive towards a man, it hurts. So
Mhm,
it affects him mentally. He feels degraded. He feels castigated. It hurts his heart.
mhm,
He feels emotionally defeated. He might even go into bouts of depression. He might feel himself feeling shame about his actions and those types of things. And so, if somebody's talking to you and they're making you feel bad about yourself, as opposed to just expressing how they feel, right? So, like a woman can be emotional and say, "Well, look, I don't feel good, and I didn't like what happened last night, and I really want to spend more time and do all these things." And she can talk about her experience, and she could express that from an emotional standpoint. She could even cry about it. She can even, do the things that she needs to do to like really get that expression out. But she doesn't have to necessarily victimize the man in doing that, right? And that's where the accountability comes in. Like her realizing, like, look, this is not something unique to the man I'm with right now. I've experienced this in past relationships. That like all my relationships leading up to this point have been similar, where I felt like I wasn't loved. I felt like I wasn't cared for. I felt like the man didn't really honor me and didn't really listen to me and didn't really hold space for me. Like this is a common thing that I'm experiencing. So as she's expressing her emotions, she's also understanding that this is something that she needs to work through. And that's the difference. You can be emotional as a woman and you can say a lot of things. You can talk to your man about how you're feeling. You can talk to your man about the things that you all have gone through together, but when you start blaming him for how you're feeling, when you start blaming him for things not going right in the relationship, that's when you start to cross the line. When you start to castigate him, when you start to talk down on him, you start to call him out of his name, that's when we've started to cross the line. That's when it moves into abuse, right? So now you have this man questioning himself as a man, as a human being. Now you have this man taking responsibility for how you feel, and that's where, again, that's where we start to cross the abuse line. No, if you are having issues or having challenges and you don't have the communication skills to work through that together, or the conflict resolution skills to work through that together, then you should get a third party, a coach or a counselor or whatever it is, and you guys go in and work that out the best way you possibly can. But when it devolves into name calling, when it devolves into blaming, when it devolves into questioning your integrity or your character, then that's when we're getting into abuse. And again, remember, this is somebody you chose to be with. So, this nobody forced you to be with this person, right? So the fact that you're, demeaning them in that way and you're doing it consistently, that's an issue. That's when you know it's abusive. Like, wait a minute, nobody told you to be with this person. Nobody told you had to stay in the relationship. Nobody told you had to, you know, deal with certain things or function a certain way inside the relationship. So that's when you know it becomes abusive. And then there are the other obvious more abuse things, like where it can get physical, or you start talking to other people about your man, you know what I'm saying, or you start gossiping about your man, or you start to break down, his brand, by reducing the impression that other people have of him by telling stories about him or putting his business out there, and that kind of stuff. So when you're doing that, when you're going to other people and you're also talking down on him, and you're also gossiping about him, and you're also putting your relationship business out there, and on a one-sided way, then you've also crossed the abuse line with that. So that's my examples of when it's abuse versus not.
Thank you for that. You mentioned in the previous episode the importance of authenticity, of being your authentic self, not being fake. How does one differentiate between being your authentic self versus performative femininity or performative masculinity? Because a lot of women will say, well, I was being my authentic self, and the relationship ended up being garbage. And so I'm being told now that the only way to fix that is to be more feminine. And like, how do the women know if they're being authentically feminine or if they're being performative feminine?
Well, so the way to fix a relationship is not through being more feminine. So again, when you come together with somebody, when you choose somebody, you guys are matched up perfectly. So the amount of femininity that she has matches with the amount of masculinity that he has, right? It's not one-sided. It's not like he's super masculine and she's not feminine. No, you guys are going to match. You see what I'm saying? So that's number one. So her just becoming more feminine is not a solution. No, the solution is you understanding what the issues are that are causing you to create a scenario inside relationships that there's dissension and dysfunction. That's the issue. And the issue is you don't know how to communicate. And the issue is you don't understand how to resolve conflicts. And the issue is that you don't understand what masculine energy is or what feminine energy is, or the issue is that you don't understand why you chose to be with this person. These are the actual issues in the relationship. It's not that, oh, you need to be more feminine and that'll fix everything. So yeah, if you're just being more feminine to fix the relationship, then you're being inauthentic. Now, if you're
Mm,
choosing to be more feminine because as a woman, you're going on a personal growth and development path to develop your femininity, then that's you being authentic. You're like, yeah, well, I want to learn to be more feminine. I want to do that for me. And yeah,
mm,
it's going to help my relationships and it's going to help me in the work world. It's going to help me with my friendships, et cetera, et cetera. So that's a different thing. If you're doing it for you and you're doing it to improve your life, then you're in your authentic feminine. Now, when you go on that journey as a woman, it's going to take a minute for you to actually have some success there. Like you don't start a journey of finding your power or finding your femininity and it just happens within a month or 2 months or 6 months. It's going to take a minute for you to actually be consistent and incorporate these, new behaviors into your life. And so yeah, that's when you're being authentic. You're saying, hey, I'm going to go on a journey of finding my femininity and expressing it more. And I'm doing that for me. I'm doing that for my power. I'm doing that for my happiness. And yes, I'm hoping that's going to support my relationship. I'm hoping it's going to support a number of things in my life. But the relationship issues, again, are like what I said, those are different sets of issues. That's where you're not really understanding what's going on between you and this man. That's when you need to, like I said, increase your communication, work on conflict resolution, understand men in the masculine, understand your femininity, and like really get into, what it takes to relate with another human being.
mm,
Relationship skills. That's what most, people lack, not just women, but men and women. They lack relationship skills. We assume like we should just be able to relate to another human being, not understand that it's a very complex challenge and undertaking to be with this person 24/7, 365, and to build together and to get along together. You see what I'm saying? Like that takes skills. There's so many things that we go through individually in terms of the ups and downs of our emotions and the ebbs and flows of our energy throughout the month and the year, and the same thing with your partner. That needs there's a certain level of expertise and care and intentionality that needs to be, what I'm saying, um, kind of, used to navigate these situations. And so
mm.
that's what is required to get the relationship back on track, not just getting into your femininity.
Thank you. My next question is, how can women feel safe and secure in a polyamorous relationship where there may be many unknowns? And also, I want to add to that, there's a lot of women that, who are dating a polyamorous man, but they themselves are monogamous. So the woman is exclusive to him, but he's seeing other women. In that type of scenario, how can a woman feel safe and secure?
Yeah, that's a great question. If a woman's dating a polyamorous man, so he's dating other women and she's trying to be exclusive to him, then yeah, she's gonna have to get that safety and security through understanding her choice
Mm,
and being comfortable with that choice and being realistic. Again, I mentioned this on the last podcast. A lot of women do that. They'll be exclusive with a man, even though he's poly, as a
mm,
way to get him to be exclusive with her eventually, or
mm,
to put pressure on him to be exclusive eventually, or to give her more time, or to appear as the superior choice of woman in his life. And so if she's functioning that way, she's functioning in an inauthentic and a manipulative way, and she should stop doing that. So if she's going to be exclusive with the man, then she's doing that because that's what she wants and desires to do, not
mm,
because she's expecting something in return, not because she's wanting special treatment or any of that kind of stuff. And if she's able to wrap her mind around that, then she'll be fine. She'll be secure. She'll know why she's doing what she's doing, and she'll understand, the benefits and also, the potential negatives of making that
mm,
choice. And she can
mm,
take accountability and responsibility for it. So, being secure in the poly situation is no different than being secure in a monogamous situation.
mm,
Monogamy is very unpredictable. Again, most of the cheating, most of the abuse, most of the bad communication, most of the issues with sexuality, like all that's really taking place inside monogamous unions. You see what I'm
mm,
saying? That's where all the drama is. So there's a lot of unknowns in monogamy. And
mm,
you have to also be secure in your choice to be monogamous. When you and your partner are monogamous, you got to be secure in that choice. Understand that there's still going to be the same amount of unknowns. There's still going to be the same amount of challenges. They're going to look different than a poly situation, but you're going to have to be secure. You're going to have to be accountable for your actions if you want success inside monogamy as well as poly.
Thank you. You and your wife, Kenya, teach a communication system or conflict resolution called Uplevel. You've written a book on it. And I have a friend, a former client who for many, many, many years, she has tried to get her dark masculine man to read your up level book and to do the up level communication process with her. And he absolutely refuses to read the book. He has no interest in doing up level. He does not want to do it. And a lot of, in my opinion, a lot of dark masculine men don't necessarily want to do the up level process. So my question to you is it possible for a woman to get her dark masculine man to agree to something like up level?
Um, Let me say it like this.
Okay.
Um, the fact that she was trying to get her man to do up level, I think that's fine.
Mhm.
You know, um, I think people growing together and learning together and having some kind of system to help their relationship run smoothly is great. And so if you can get your dark masculine to use up level or any other communication system, I think it's great. Here's the issue. The issue is with most dark masculine men, they don't feel there's a problem on their side. So
Mm.
they're not trying to really work and grow on anything. It's usually the woman in the situation who's like, well, I want my dark masculine man to change or to be better or whatever it is. So she's wanting him to change, but he
Yes.
doesn't view it the same way, right? So what that means is the burden's going to be on her. Now, here's the good news. The good news is she can utilize up level on her own, and she
Mhm.
can utilize it with her dark masculine man without even having to talk to him about it. Like, so she can utilize the communication principles and protocols to improve their communication. So if she utilizes up level on her own and she utilizes it when she's talking to her dark masculine and she implements those principles and those tool sets, then she's going to see a marked improvement in their communication and their relationship. He's going to respond favorably to it. I think it's a mistake to try to force
Mhm.
tools on your partner. It's, if you have that kind of relationship, then it's great. Then you all are looking for tools together and you're agreeing we're going to work on this together and work on that or implement these things together. But in a lot of cases, especially when you're talking about the dark masculine situations and stuff like that, it's really, people are not working on their growth together. So
Mhm.
it's really up to the woman in this case to find the tools that she needs to, help her manage the relationship a lot better with her dark masculine. And so she can utilize up level on her own, the principles, and she's going to see marked improvement inside their communication.
Mhm. You hit the nail on the head when you said she wants to change him. And so she's hoping that by getting him to do up level, he'll change, but he's already made up his mind that he's not changing. And that's where they were like battling with each other. So that was brilliant for you to point out. The next question is, how can we let go of the idea that men are supposed to lead and dominate and women are supposed to submit and follow? How can we let go of traditional gender roles?
Yeah, that's a great question. Again, the culture of monogamy is what puts that narrative out there that the masculine is dominant and the feminine is submissive.
Mhm.
And that's not true. So again, part of it is education. Part of it is women learning that, you can be feminine and dominant, or you can be feminine and neutral, you can be feminine and submissive. In the same way you can be masculine and dominant, or masculine and neutral, or masculine and submissive. So dominance and submissiveness, they don't align with masculinity or femininity automatically. They span both of those particular, what we call gender energies. So part of it is education. And that's a big issue in relationships where, men go into the relationship assuming they're supposed to be dominant
Mhm.
and that they have this leadership capability and they don't, and that impacts the relationship in a negative way. And women do the same thing. They go into it assuming they're supposed to be submissive, and they're not really submissive by nature.
Mhm.
And they have a hard time being submissive, and that affects the relationship in a negative way. And so it's important for people to understand their individual personalities. Like, as a man in a relationship, you need to look at yourself and say, okay, do I have dominant tendencies? Do I even have masculine tendencies? A lot of men don't even have masculine tendencies. They might have, androgynous tendencies or feminine tendencies and those types of things. And the
Mhm.
issue with monogamous culture, with the masculine being considered superior, is that, men will resist, utilizing their feminine energy in life and in relationships. And they'll resist utilizing their androgynous energy. But, we're all masculine, androgynous, and feminine. We
Mhm.
are all dominant, neutral, and submissive. We have all these qualities to our makeup as human beings. And so, monogamous culture kind of makes men feel shame about being feminine, and it makes women feel shame about being masculine. And that's just not the case. So, again, part of his education, where we need to understand what these things are, what these particular gender energies are, and we need to learn, like, who we are within those particular energies, like how we normally express, so that we can feel confident in our authentic expression. Again, this goes back to the authentic expression conversation we had, which was, if you're a woman and you're naturally dominant, let's say you're feminine and you're dominant, then you need to embrace that. There's nothing wrong with being feminine and dominant. There's nothing wrong with being androgynous and dominant, or whatever it might be. Like, don't shy away from who you are as a woman. Embrace the complete you. And so we need to learn to do that. And men, the same thing with men. Like, men, if you have feminine energy, you have submissive energy, whatever it might be, like, you need to learn to embrace that. But because of, like, again, the culture that we live in, the culture of monogamy, people feel ashamed about adopting the qualities and characteristics of some of these archetypes. And I think that's the primary issue. Is just we're all messed up in terms of, like, how men view women as weak, and so they don't want anything to do with femininity. They even want to
Mhm.
learn about femininity. You see what I'm saying? And so it just creates a real problem in our relationships.
Mhm. Thank you. My next question is, why doesn't your Pantheon community teach about morals, meaning good versus bad, right versus wrong? How can you have a community without a moral code?
Yeah, we don't believe in the concept of right versus wrong. That's more of a religious concept. It's
Mhm.
like a church or Christian concept or Islamic concept, where you're saying, look, these are the things that you can do, and if you do these things, then God will look favorably upon you. And these are the things that you can't do. And if you do those things, God's going to look down on you. So we don't teach from that perspective. We teach from the perspective of, every action is going to have a consequence to it, right?
Mhm.
We teach from the perspective that there is no right or wrong. There's just people doing things, and there's people manifesting particular things, and there's people who are, encountering the results of their choices. And
Mhm.
that's all there is to it. Again, an example so people can understand, like, when you look at when countries fight and go into war and that kind of stuff, or people having disagreements, yeah, each person, each country always believes they're the right one. So the whole concept of right or wrong is completely and totally subjective. You see,
Mhm.
so for somebody to tell you that certain things are right or wrong and that those are absolutes, they don't understand life. It's not true. You know, it's all subjective. So you need to choose what you want to do for your life, and you want to live by your own personal code. And again, if your code is, well, this is right or this is wrong, then that's fine. That's your choice. But what we're saying in Pantheon is that, there's no such thing as right or wrong. Um, there's just the result of your actions, the
Mhm.
result of your thinking, the result of the people you choose to relate with, the result of you not developing certain skills and capabilities, the result of you being in victim mode, or you feeling shame about who you are as a person or human being. And what we do talk about in Pantheon is we talk about, tenets to live by, and those tenets are meant to help you be in your power. So we're not saying you have to live by those because they're the right or wrong thing to do, but we're saying that if you want to like maintain a power of focus in your life, then you want to live within these tenets. And those tenets are, there are no victims in life and no villains. Again, you can be a victim or you can be a villain, but those archetypes take away your power as a human being. And there's no shame and no blame. So you can feel shame if you want, or you can blame others for what you do or don't have. But again, it takes the power away from you when you do that. And the concept of there's no copying out of life and no dropping out of life, meaning that, yes, you can remove yourself physically or mentally from a situation, but again, you're robbing yourself of the power, your own personal power when you do that. Talk about the purpose of life and relationships is growth. And the benefit of you working through challenges with your partner is, love. That's how you make love together, by working
Mm,
through challenges. And the final tenet is I create my life, meaning that we're all creating our lives. So, by our actions, by our choices, by our thought process, by our beliefs, by our expectations, all these things are creating our lives. So everything that we see in front of us today, our relationships, our financial situation, our health situation, etc., is a result of us creating that through our beliefs and our thoughts, etc. So we're more focused on, helping people be inside their power as opposed to telling them what is right or wrong.
Thank you for that. What is your particular viewpoint on why so many women have a hard time accessing their dark feminine faculty, or what you call the conservationist archetype? Why is this such a challenging thing for women in your view?
Well, it's challenging for women to access the dark feminine, partly because, the feminine arts are very mysterious. The reason why so many women have issues with femininity is because it's a mysterious art. Femininity, by definition, is mysterious. And therefore, it's hard to understand, it's hard to see. It's hard to see the effects of feminine energy being, used in a particular situation. And so the bottom line is, number one, most women aren't even aware of it. It's not really taught in our culture. We
Mhm.
don't have those type of societies where women are passing down this information anymore. So only certain people have this information, number one. Number two, the culture doesn't respect it. So what's respected in our culture is masculine energy and masculine expression. And so, what women see is, masculine expression being rewarded. They go out and work hard and go out and hustle and go out and do all these things. And so women think, well, I need to be like that. So they adopt a masculine perspective on life and a masculine approach to life because no one ever taught them the feminine approach. And so that's the issue. The issue is that these feminine arts are just, they're very challenging to understand. It really takes women who are living this stuff on a daily basis and practicing this stuff on a daily basis to understand it, and then pass it down and teach other women, and where it becomes a practice. And so a lot of these arts are just lost, and that's why women are having a hard time adopting that conservationist archetype, that dark feminine archetype.
Thank you. Next question. How can a woman know when she's tolerating or coddling her dark masculine man's little boy persona versus challenging him to grow as a man? Like, how do you differentiate between the two? Because I've even seen women, sometimes when they disagree with your post, they'll say, "Oh, you're teaching us people pleasing and you're telling us to put up with bullshit." So how do you distinguish as a woman between tolerating bullshit versus challenging him to grow?
Yeah, well, first of all, it's not a woman's responsibility to get your man to grow. So that's a code word or code phrase that women use when they don't want to do the work to change themselves, and they want somebody else to do the work. So you chose to be with this man. You see what I'm saying? And so what's happening is you're realizing over time that your choice to be with him is based on certain toxic traits that you have as a woman, and you're seeing those things come out in the relationship. So, for example, the man has bad communication skills, has always had bad communication skills, yet you still choose to be with him. Or the man's not spending time with you, or making efforts to do special things, yet you're still choosing to be with this man. You're still attracted to this person. You still want him in your life. So, what happens is the women over time, they see like, you know what, I chose to be with somebody, and there must be some kind of trauma response, some kind of trauma bond with this man. right? And so instead of facing the fact that you chose to be with somebody who doesn't show up like how you want a man to show up in your life, you try to get him to change, and you try to get him to grow, and that's where some of the abuse comes in that we talked about earlier. You try to castigate him about his behavior, and you don't do this and you don't do that. No, the real issue is you chose to be with a man based on your early childhood traumas. That's what brought you together with this person. That's what has you attached to this person in an unhealthy way, to the point where you can't leave even if you try to leave, right? So instead of trying to get some help and support, you're trying to get him to change his behavior, but he's not going to change his behavior. You know what I'm saying? Like I told you in the beginning, these are two people who've got these complementary traumas that have brought them together. And so what the women try to do is try to get him to grow and change and try to teach him how to be better and all that kind of stuff. And that's not the issue. The issue is you. You're the one who's with somebody who is not feeding your soul, who's not feeding your spirit. You're trying to force a square peg into a round hole. You're trying to justify your decision to be with this person and not be with somebody who treats you better. And so that's where that comes from. And again, as I told you earlier, the dark masculine is not going to change. The dark masculine, unless he actually really feels that love and compassion from the woman, and she's, not abusing him, and she's patient with him, and like she really loves him. If she really loves him, then yeah, eventually then he'll reach out to her for support and ask her how they can grow together. But in most cases, that's not what's happening. In most cases, she's trying to get him to change to make her life easier. The bottom line is it's really up to her to make the changes she needs to make within herself. If you want this relationship to be different, then you need to make certain changes within yourself. And I think a lot of women have a hard time with that.
Yeah.
I think they don't understand that they can change the relationship through changing their own behavior. They're assuming the only way to get the relationship to change is to get the man to change, and that's not true. You can change your whole life. You can change your whole environment by changing your choices and your perspective. People will treat you differently based on how you move differently and based on your new belief systems and your new expectations. So a lot of women don't really understand that, but that's what the issue is. The issue is they're trying to get the man to change when really they should be the one changing.
Mhm. I think 2 days ago, I saw somebody on your Facebook business page. She made a comment saying, Rakim, you're not like the typical dark masculine man. Like you're spiritual and you're intelligent and this and that. And she went on to say that, most of these dark masculine men, the only thing that they have to offer is their penis. That's it. So what thoughts go through your head when a woman says something like that?
Well, yeah, a lot of dark masculine men they offer the penis, and that is usually enough. You know what I'm saying? Like when you look at the history of women, including the woman who complain about him, like that's why she's with him, because of the penis. You know what I'm saying? So it's like what is she really saying? Like you're with this man because of the sensual connection you have with him. You're not with him because he's got a great job. You're not with him because of his communication skills. You're not with him because he can hold space for you. You know what I'm saying? And hold space for your emotions. You're not with him because of any of those things. You're literally with this man because of the way he has sex with you. That's it. And now again, like what I was saying earlier, the women realize like it's like a buyer's remorse kind of energy that comes in. You're like, man, I'm with somebody who doesn't like really show up for me. Like I'm with somebody purely because of the sexual connection. And then you try to escape accountability for that. And that's when you try to get the man to change. And that's when you try to, go online and watch podcasts where, these influencers are telling you like, yeah, the man's wrong, and they're blasting him and castigating him. So you're doing anything you can possibly do to escape accountability for the situation. But yeah, they're with him because of the sex. And a lot of women, and I know you've had this discussion with a lot of your clients, a lot of women have a hard time admitting that.
Totally.
Yeah, you're having a hard time admitting like the reason why I'm with this guy is purely because of the sexual connection. There's nothing else he's bringing to the table. Literally, no money, no time, no energy, no special stuff, no traveling, no support, no nothing. Like, and because they have a hard time admitting that sensual draw to him as the primary and only thing, they have to find excuses for why he's not showing up. And that's why a lot of these influencers are making a lot of money and putting that stuff out there, is because, a lot of women are looking for the excuses.
Mm,
They want to escape the accountability, and they want to hear somebody say, yeah, he's wrong.
mhm,
You know, it's not you, it's him.
mhm,
But no, it's you. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're with somebody who he's always been this way. It's not like he was a great listener and great communicator and great all these things, and then he just dropped off the face of the earth with it. Yeah, he might have been a bit more communicative in the beginning, like the courting stage. Most people
mhm.
are, but no, he's always had the same basic qualities, and women have a hard time really coming to grips with that.
Yeah, totally. So we're going to switch gears here and talk about money now. So I'm just going to give a preamble first. I'm going to just say what I want to say about this topic, and then I'll start asking you some questions in regards to what I said. So lots of women seem to believe that being highly educated, rich, and successful, being a highly educated, rich, and successful woman is a turnoff to men, and it intimidates men, and and it also means that she's a masculine woman. And I even have a male friend of mine who he always says to me that he believes that Michelle Obama is a transgender woman. Like he doesn't believe that she's an actual woman because he sees her as masculine. And so, and also in addition to that, a lot of women fear that, well, if I'm rich and successful and all of that, then I'm gonna be more likely to attract like low income or no income men who just want to take my money and use me for my money. And I have had, a few wealthy clients who complain about this, where the man's always asking them for money, or she's literally paying for everything. He's not paying any bills at all. She's paid off his credit card, the whole nine. But in a lot of these cases, after a few years, these women, they eventually become resentful towards that man. They get tired of paying for everything. So, with all that said, my first question is, are highly educated, rich, and successful women a turnoff to men or intimidating to men?
No, rich women are not a turnoff to men. Now there is a segment of men out there who are intimidated by a woman with money and her own, career and that kind of stuff. So that
Mhm,
is out there. So you got to understand we're in a time right now where things are changing, right? So again, back in the 1930s, 40s, and 50s, women really weren't able to make money
mhm,
and they weren't able to vote and have their own stuff, right? So now we're coming out of that, right? And what's happening is we have more equality in the world, where at the end of the day, a woman or a man can go out and create the life that they want. There's nothing stopping you from going out and creating your life. You see what I'm saying?
mhm,
So that's where we are now. The issue is that a lot of people, both men and women, are having a hard time letting go of like these old traditional narratives around dating and relationships. So they still want to hold on to certain aspects of traditional life. So, for example, like a women want to be able to make their own money and do their own thing and have their career and all that stuff. But they also want a man to kind of be the breadwinner and
mhm,
a man to be, what I'm saying, somebody who's going to be some kind of provider or whatever. And like those two things aren't always going to mix.
mhm,
Like it's not like it used to be where most women were being taken care of by the men and
mhm,
most men were the breadwinners. The reason why men were breadwinners is because they were the only ones who could get jobs. You see what I'm
mhm,
saying? And women were marrying these men for based on survival, not
mhm,
based on love. Like they were just trying to survive. You see what I'm saying? So now it's a different age, it's a different era. And you're coming together with people because you like the person or you love the person or you want to build with this person. And so that's a whole different way of approaching relationships and dating. And men and women are having a real hard time with that. Now, again, the younger generations are going to be okay because they're
mhm,
coming into it and that's going to be the status quo. So they're coming in where they're expecting that, yeah, women have the same opportunities as men and they're able to make their money and do their thing. And there's no issues with that. There's no expectation of traditionalism there. But
mhm,
the generations in their late 30s and 40s and 50s, those individuals are having a hard time making the adjustment. So that's what
mhm,
these women are talking about. They're talking about like these men who are still steeped in these old traditional gender roles,
mhm,
that they're looking at them as some kind of a threat or being too masculine. That's number one. Number two, No, a lot of women are looked at by men as, just like really smart and accomplished. But a lot of men are out here, they're out here hustling too. And they want a woman who has a similar kind of hustle to them. Even if her hustle is more on the optional side, but she has her own thing. She's got her own career, she's got her own business, she's got her own hobby, her own passion, whatever it might be. Like there's men out there who want a woman who has a passion for life outside of just the family or outside of just him. Like not all men are looking for a woman who is exclusively focusing on him 24/7 and doesn't have anything else going on. So, it's just not true that, all men are threatened by that. A lot of men are looking for women who have the same kind of passion for life that they have. Okay. And then, yeah, that's the other point you made, that women are concerned about men using for their money. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? That's the same thing men have always gone through for the past 100 years or 500 years, or whatever it is like the concern that the only reason why you're with me is because I have money. And yeah, that's a concern. So now a part of life, if you're making money, and this is just capitalism. If you're making money, you got to understand that there are going to be people who look at you strictly because of your money. They're going to want access to your money. That's just how it works. You know what I'm saying? That has nothing to do with men or women or gender roles or any of that kind of stuff. That's capitalism. Okay. So, and you could talk to any star, any famous person, whatever, they'll tell you like they understand that a lot of folks try to befriend them strictly because they have money. So that's just whenever you start to make money, whenever you got yourself together, and you see this within families. When people become successful within a family, everybody in the family starts hitting them up. Or you hit the lottery, everybody in the family starts to hit you up. That's just a part of life. When you start making money, folks are going to come at you. So you have to learn to navigate that as a woman. Again, that's a part of you coming into your power. It's a part of you coming into your equality. You don't get to make money and not worry about the money problems. You see what I'm saying? Like, no, you also get to balance out those things as well. You get to manage your money. You have to tell people no. You got to watch out for people who are going to try to use you for your money. Like all those types of things are reality. So to me, that's one of the big things that women need to realize and watch out for.
Why do so many female breadwinners, okay, specifically women that are with a dark masculine man, and she has him living with her, she's paying for everything. Why did those women eventually get turned off and resentful towards that man?
Well, a lot of women who are breadwinners and they get with a dark masculine, they again the same thing I said before. They're with him because of the sensual connection.
Hmm.
It's still based on the penis. You see what
Hmm.
I'm saying? So it's like what happens is over time, the women realize like this man doesn't really show up for me. Like I've trauma bonded with this man. So my early childhood traumas have matched and complemented his early childhood traumas. And yeah, the sex was great, but that's all there ever was. And so now that I'm not getting the other things and I'm starting to feel bad about that, I'm starting to see other women get those things and I want that, or what I'm saying? So that's what's happening. So just because she has money doesn't escape the fact that she's with this man purely based on the sensual connection. And yeah, over time, she's gonna look for excuses to escape accountability for why she's with this man. Like, oh, he doesn't pay for anything, I pay for everything. Well, he'd never pay for anything. Well, he doesn't, he's lazy or doesn't whatever. Like he's always been lazy. You're with him because of the penis. Okay. So yeah, just because you're a woman with money or a woman with no money, it's the same exact thing. You're looking for excuses for why, he's the accountable person and you're not. And yeah, resentfulness is a part of it. You're going to get resentful. You see what I'm saying? Because you're doing all these things. But again, you chose to be with this person and he's been basically the same person the entire time.
Thank you. Um, Many of the clients that are low income that I've had, they bristle when I tell them that I use the term broke bitch. Don't, get offended. But being a broke bitch is very unattractive to their dark masculine man. Meaning their dark masculine man will fuck them, but he won't necessarily want to commit to them or be monogamous with them. Why does a woman's income level matter when relating with a dark masculine man?
Well, the thing about a dark masculine man is he doesn't have any issues obtaining sex.
Hmm.
So the fact that the woman is offering that is not really something that's really that appealing to him. He enjoys it, he appreciates it, but he has women in abundance who are offering him that. You see what I'm
Hmm.
saying? So what happens is when you're a dark masculine, you have all these women who want to sleep with you, right?
Hmm.
They're pretty much addicted to your sensuality as a man, and so you begin to say, well, that's a value that I have, and I want more in exchange. Like it's, maybe when I was younger, as a dark masculine, then that was enough exchange for me.
Hmm.
You see what I'm saying? Like a purely equal sensual exchange. But after a while, you're like, you know what? I want more. Just like women who are like very beautiful, they
Hmm.
want men who have money or who can, um, like show them a certain lifestyle. Because
Yeah.
they're in the top 1 percentile or 2 percentile of beautiful women in the world, and they see that as valuable.
Hmm.
And a lot of these women, they work for that. Like they took the time to like really get themselves together and all these things to present themselves in that way. They want to be acknowledged for that, and not they're not looking for sex. You know what I'm saying? They're looking for money and looking for lifestyle. And so the dark mouse is the same way. Like, yeah, he doesn't have any money, but he has great penis, great sex, and he wants to be acknowledged for that. He's got like 20 or 30 women who are trying to get with him right now. So why settle for just sensuality? And a lot of these women don't understand that. They think that their sensuality is enough to
Hmm.
appease him, and that's an equal exchange. No, it's not an equal exchange. And on top of that, a lot of these women, they're really not that skilled sexually.
Hmm.
So they think that they're bringing something to the table from a sensual standpoint when they're not. You're
Hmm.
not exceptional. He's not with you because you were blowing him out the water in the bed. That's not what's happening. He's with you for other reasons. Like, yeah, he appreciates the sensual connection, but he's looking for other things from you. You see what I'm saying? And so that's why he's primarily with you and giving you that time and attention. So yeah, I think women need to just kind of come to grips with that,
Yeah.
and like really, settle in their spirit around it.
Okay. So my next question is there's a lot of influencers that teach that a real man should take pride in financially providing for his wife or girlfriend. So this and okay, let me say more on that because there's an influencer who I think he's a multimillionaire at this point, and he has said that paying for everything has actually made him a wealthier man. And so he's been telling men like, look, like being the 100% provider financially for your wife is actually going to make you a more masculine man. So you should want to do this. So what are your thoughts on that? I'm not, this is what it takes to be a real man. Like, what are your thoughts?
Well, in terms of that's what it takes to be a real man, that's a false narrative. So that's not true. So a man paying 100% of everything is not what makes him a man, right? Um, in terms of this particular influencer telling men that they should pay for everything and it helps to increase their masculinity or helps to
Their
increase
wealth.
their wealth or whatever, I think that's fine. That probably is a path to take. You see what I'm saying? Like, so for example, Steve Harvey made a statement one time. He said, you should fly first class sometime. He said, once you fly first class, you're never going to want to fly coach again. You
Mm,
see what I'm saying? And so what he was saying with that is like, look, if you start to desire a certain lifestyle and desire a certain amount of money for yourself so you can do certain things, then that's going to help you along the path of making more money. So I look at what this influencer is saying is the same thing. Like, look, if you strive to be the breadwinner and you strive to pay for everything, what's going to happen inside your consciousness as a man is that you're going to make choices and decisions that will help you achieve that goal.
mm,
So he's basically saying, put yourself a goal out there to make more money. But that's no different than him saying, look, if you want a Maserati or Bugatti, then you got to work harder and you got to do all those things. Like, yeah, so that'll also make you richer.
mm,
Like having a goal of having a multi-million-dollar house will also help you be more rich, or having a goal of having a net worth of $250 million. That'll also help you be more rich. So your mindset will change. So yeah, so him saying like pay for everything for the woman, or what he's saying is like, live a lifestyle where you have more money, where you have the
Mhm.
money to pay. And that will cause you to pursue avenues and careers and opportunities to help you make more money. So that's how I look at that. It's not
Mhm.
that making more money makes you more of a man.
Mhm.
And if you don't make money, you're not a man. Those two things are not congruent. Now, there's certain money making activities that are masculine developing, for
Mhm.
example, like entrepreneurship or, sales or, being a strong communicator, being a strong negotiator. Like those things are, those are masculine developing qualities. You see what I'm
Mhm.
saying? But again, that's not, you can develop those qualities without making money. You see what I'm saying? Like there are a lot of people who are very strong salespeople or very strong communicators, and the goal is not making money, but they're still in their masculine because they have those particular sets of skills. So that's what I would say to those influencers.
Mhm. Okay. So you're saying that being the financial provider doesn't necessarily make you more of a man. It could
Yeah,
make you wealthier. You would have to develop a wealth consciousness to even perform that function for your wife, but it doesn't necessarily make you, a real man.
yeah, not necessarily. Again, a lot of the activities around making money are masculine developing activities.
Mhm.
Not all of them. Again, you can make money using your feminine energy.
Mhm.
You can make money using your androgynous energy. So again, this whole concept that money equals masculinity that's a false narrative.
Mhm.
Okay. So, um, but yeah, if you want to participate in certain money making avenues that require masculine energy, right?
Mhm.
Then yeah, obviously your masculine energy is going to increase. But like I said, the same thing applies to feminine. Like I could talk to women about, you can make a lot of money utilizing your feminine energy.
Mhm.
And if you practice utilizing your feminine energy and, get really good at it, you're going to make more and more money. So does that mean money's tied to femininity? No. But
Mhm.
the activity and behavior that she's using to make money through her feminine energy will make her more feminine,
Mhm.
will enhance her feminine energy, if that makes sense.
Mhm. Totally. And some women are completely repulsed at the idea of being a breadwinner. In fact, I saw a woman, she was triggered by your post about, women could be breadwinners too. And she was like, excuse me, if I was the breadwinner, I would treat him like a bitch. So, um, how can women like, because you're saying it doesn't, like the man doesn't have to be the breadwinner, but like there's some women that are like, what are you talking about, Raquel? Like, what are you saying? Like, can you say more on that?
Yeah, like the bottom line is, so first of all, when certain people respond, you've got to look at their situation. So a lot of people are responding angrily because they're not able to manifest what they want. That's number one. Number two, there's a lot of women out there who they do have a passion for working.
Mhm.
Like you can look at certain celebrities that could be actresses or these women producers. Like there's some dynamic women out there who are producing TV shows and movies, and like they love their lifestyle. They're passionate about their lifestyle. There's women who are in business who are the same way. Like, I don't have to name the names. Like you can think of these people, like these really powerful, driven women. Like the concept that those women should not be pursuing their careers and these millions of dollars. You see what I'm saying? Because there's an issue with them being their breadwinner is ridiculous. No, we know women who've retired their husbands.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So these are toxic narratives that are out there that come mostly from monogamous culture.
Mhm.
But yeah, if you're a woman, you don't want to be a breadwinner, that's no problem either. Like again, I'm not trying to tell anybody what they should or shouldn't do. I'm
Mhm.
talking to the women who are breadwinners and have a passion for working or have a passion for their business or being
Mhm.
entrepreneurs and saying there's no issues at all with you being the breadwinner if that's how it ends up being.
Mhm.
And you can still find love, you can still find a man who respects you, you can still find a man who you love and who loves you and who shows up in all the proper ways. Like this whole concept that a woman breadwinner, that all these famous women who make all this money just don't deserve love or shouldn't be in those positions, I just think that's toxic. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? Like what are we talking about? No, women can be breadwinners or men can be breadwinners. It's not a gender, like, that's what I'm trying to explain. Money's not a gender-based thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, and people who believe that they're sinking themselves. They're causing themselves to underachieve, or they're causing themselves to not find happiness and whatever it might be. So
Mm,
no, if you're a woman and you don't want to be a breadwinner, that's fine. Find a
mm,
man to take care of you. No issues with that at all. But the same thing with men. If you're a man and you don't want to be the breadwinner because you feel that you have more submissive energy, or you want to be more of a support person, for a woman that you love or whatever it is, that's fine too.
mm,
You see what I'm saying? The same thing with women who they're like, you know what, I want to be the dominant one, or I want to be the breadwinner, or I want to be whatever, or I want to have my business or whatever. Like, that's fine too. Like, whatever you choose to do is fine. Here's the thing. I want people to understand this. There are billions of people on the planet.
mm,
This whole concept that everybody's fitting into one particular kind of structure or one particular way of relating is ridiculous.
mm,
There are all kinds of people out there, man. Like, there are women making money, there are men making money, there are men who are being support, there are women who are being, like, it's all kinds of people out there, all kinds of people having experiences out there. And so again, this whole narrative about there's only one way to do it is toxic and is false. It's not
mm.
correct.
Okay, thank you. If a woman wants a man to pay for everything, what should she do to manifest that reality for herself?
Yeah, there's different things that she can do. She can, work on herself and make sure she has the expectation that, men are going to pay for things for her. And she can operate in a way that attracts that to her. That can be her working on her feminine energy, or that can be her working on being inside of her feminine empowerment, those types of things. So she can draw that out. She can attract that. But that's all inner work. That's like, there are, again, tens of millions of women who are being taken care of and provided for,
Mhm,
and they're not doing anything. Okay.
mhm,
So why is that? It's because they have a particular expectation that they're going to be taken care of. They have a belief and an understanding about that happening. There are millions of women being taken care of by rich men.
mhm,
And the question, well, why is that? Well, they've done the work to create that belief within themselves. They've cultivated that within themselves, and they've done the external work that goes along with that. You see what I'm saying? So the women need to just do the work internally to attract that, and they'll find that, yes, men are going to take care of them. They'll
mhm,
find that they're going to attract those kinds of men. They're going to reject the men who are not willing to do that, and they'll find themselves getting into that lifestyle. So that's really what it's about.
mhm. Thank you. I think you may have mentioned recently that at this stage in your marriage, that your wife is the breadwinner. So how can a man feel confident and secure in his masculinity when his wife is the breadwinner?
Well, in my situation, my wife's not the breadwinner. Um, we both have an agreement in terms of how we split bills in our family, our household, and those agreements change over time. So we have an agreement now about how we split bills. That agreement's going to change in about 4 months, where we're going to change that, change how we split bills, that kind of thing. So
Mhm,
we've always had a particular agreement in terms of how we, make money and split bills. Number two, my wife and I, we're in business together. So most of what we do is, together. So we do things separately as well, right? But a lot of what we do is together. So we're making money together.
mhm,
Um, and number three, just so your listeners are clear, like, we these things have toggled back and forth. There's been times when I've been 100% the breadwinner.
mhm,
And then there's been times where, we've shared, making money, or we've been in business together, and that's kind of how we've paid for things, which is kind of more where we are right now. In terms of your question about how can a man feel confident not being the breadwinner, well, the question is, well, what are you doing as a man in the relationship? You
mhm,
see what I'm saying? Like, are you being able to be supportive to your wife? Are you able to hold space for her? Are you able to take care of the things that got to be taken care of? I know a lot of women who are the breadwinners, but they're not like dealing with bill collectors, working, doing their taxes, managing the money, or any of that kind of stuff. A
Mhm.
lot of times, as a man, like it's the question of what's your role inside the family, inside the relationship. And
Mhm.
if you have an active role, you're being supportive as a man, you're managing things within the house, which can include the finances,
Mhm.
making sure that you're interfacing with bill collectors and you're paying bills and all that. Then that's really what the masculine thing is. The masculine expression is when you are dealing with things that are happening outside the house, and you're protecting the house, and you're making sure that everybody inside the house is safe and secure.
Mhm.
And that includes dealing with, again, like these bill collectors, and dealing with like organizing the bills and organizing the money and organizing the taxes. So if you're doing that as a man, and you're taking responsibility for that, and you're taking accountability for things happening inside the house, that's where your masculinity is really nurtured or defined. It's,
Mhm.
again, it's not about how much money you make. There are a lot of like really masculine men who they're not the breadwinners, but they work really hard, very protective of the house. They show up as men for the family, for the children, those types of things. So again,
Mhm.
this whole connection between masculinity and manhood and money is a false narrative. The question is, how are you showing up as a man inside the relationship? That's what defines your manhood and your masculinity.
There's still a lot of men that are resistant to letting their girlfriend or their wife pay for anything because they do have it tied to their masculinity. So for those men, how can they begin to reframe or embrace, letting their women pay for dates or pay for vacations or what have you? How can they make that shift?
Well, to me, that's just about love. Like if you love your woman and she desires to do that for you. So there's women out there who desire to pay for their man. So
Mhm.
again, we all show love in different ways. Some women show love like they want to cook for their man, or they
Mhm.
want to sex him down, twice a day, or give him massages, or take care of the household or whatever. Like that's a show of love. That's cool, right? There's other women who they might want to do that, or they might want to like pay for stuff. Like there's a lot of women who want to take their man on vacation.
Mhm.
Like I watched a video the other day. The woman bought her man a brand new Ferrari.
Mhm.
You see what I'm saying? Like she, just to express love. I saw another video where the woman bought her man a Rolls Royce. You see what I'm
Mhm.
saying? So that's what I'm saying. Like women, if they want to show love in that way, and the man loves her, then he'll allow her to show love in that way. If she wants to work, or she wants to pursue an entrepreneurial business, or she wants to make her money because she has a passion in life, and the man loves her, then he'll allow her to do that. Now if he doesn't want her to pay for stuff and he wants to handle all that, that's fine. Then he can say, look, you just save all your money and you can keep it for yourself. That's fine. That's how he's showing love or support in his own way. The only issue I have with that is if, by him not allowing her to pay for things or contribute, that lowers their lifestyle.
Mhm.
So instead of having a multi-million-dollar house, they just got a $500,000 house because he's not allowing her to contribute.
Mhm.
Or if, again, she wants to contribute, or she wants to pay as a part of the way she shows her love to her family. So a lot of women understand this. The way that they teach their daughters about life is through example. And so a lot of women want their daughters to see, like women in power positions,
Mhm.
women who are independent, who make their own money, who can make their own decisions, and still be loved in that. So, you know, that's very important for a lot of women to display empowerment to their children. And the same thing for women and their sons. They want their sons to see, look, you know, you can have a strong woman who's independent, but also feminine, who has her own passions in life, but also is about family, is also about having children, is also about loving her husband, and all these things. Like those women exist,
Mhm.
and women want to display that by example. So again, I understand that the people who are caught up in the old narrative, again, a lot of men are going to have a hard time changing. A lot of women are going to have a hard time changing, but trust me, the where we're going and where we are today
Mhm.
is, it's not about these traditional roles that we've been taught. Women are no longer, unable to, support themselves. Women are no longer, being frozen out of the job market or being told they can't be entrepreneurs or whatever. No, women can choose to do whatever they want to do. And if that's make money or pursue their dream or pursue their passion, that's what they're going to do. And
Mhm.
the men are going to have to learn to adjust. That's all there is to it.
Mhm. My final question, and I forgot to ask this in the earlier part of this conversation, but you've talked about on our last episode of women using their um, imagination to cause their dark masculine man to initiate contact with them. And so here's the thing. I've had and had clients who when I teach them that, like they run with it and they get like amazing results and they're just like, whoa, this is incredible, Leslie. Oh my God. And then I have other clients who it's really hard. And they'll try and then after maybe 4 weeks, 6 weeks, whatever, like they just can't take the pain of not having any access to their dark masculine man. And so they then go ahead and initiate contact with him. And so, but then they feel pain about that because they're like, oh, I was really, trying to work on my femininity and my magnetism and my imagination. And I still ended up initiating contact with the man. So that means I'm not feminine. That means I'm masculine. And then they beat themselves up. And so many women get caught up in that. Like, I got to figure out how to get him to pursue me. Because if I don't, that means that I'm masculine and he's feminine. And so, like, what's your advice for that, Rakim?
Yeah, I mean, it takes practice. The feminine arts, those are not easy. When you talk about magnetism and attraction and bringing reality to you and shifting reality with your energy, like that takes practice. So a lot of
Mhm.
women, like they've been around 30, 40 years and they have never utilized that as a primary way to shape their reality. And so to think you're going to just suddenly pick it up after a few weeks or a few months is ridiculous. You're going to have to practice that. And the issue is you need to get inside of a community and sisterhood of women who are also practicing that so you can get the support. That's one of the things
Mhm.
that we're doing at Pantheon is we have a brotherhood and we have a sisterhood as a part of Pantheon where women can actually practice doing that work. So it takes practice. And yeah,
Mhm.
I understand, we all beat ourselves up when we fall short. It could be a fitness goal, it could be a monetary goal, whatever, but that's a part of life. You got
Mhm.
to, get around people who can lift you back up and let's, try again. So I
It
understand her
should
opinion.
that even be like, should women be focused on the goal of getting the dark masculine man to pursue them? Like,
Well,
should that even be a goal?
if she wants that as a goal, she can have that as a goal where the dark masculine pursues her. Again, this is all these relationships are about growth and development.
Mhm.
So they're about you coming into your power as a woman. So yeah, if you want to exercise the power of trying to be more magnetic and to shift your environment and you're surrounded with feminine energy, then feel free to do that.
Mhm.
Again, it doesn't change the fact that the relationship might be based on toxicity or based on some kind of trauma bonding between you and him. But sure, yeah, go ahead and work on your femininity. Um, there's no issues with that, you know.
What if she just decides to initiate contact with him? How can a woman come to terms with that or be okay with that? That, okay, you know what? I'm doing 99.999% of the initiating. How does she like be okay with that?
Well, she doesn't have to be okay with it. You know what I'm saying? If she's doing all the initiating, again, she's chosen to be with this man.
Mhm.
After a while, she realized that, hey, this is some kind of traumatic bond I have with him. I'm with somebody who's not showing up the way I want. And so
Mhm.
she'll start asking the question, why am I not attracting love and,
Mhm.
support and compassion from men?
Mhm.
And, again, once she kind of comes out the victim mode and blaming him for everything, then she'll look at herself and say, you know what, I want something better. And she'll look to attract something better in her life.
Mhm. Wow, that's a great question. Why am I not attracting love? And I would say for a lot of women, and everyone, all humans, receiving love for a lot of people is very vulnerable. It's so vulnerable that they won't allow it to happen because they don't want to feel that level of vulnerability. like receiving love is vulnerable. Does that make sense to you, Rakim?
Yeah, absolutely. Receiving love requires that you love yourself first.
Mm.
And so you can't, people can say they love themselves, but you can't really escape that. So the amount that you love yourself is reflected in how people treat you. That's the metaphysical connection. So if people are showering you with love and showing up for you in all these ways, then that's a reflection of your own self-love, right?
Mm.
If you've got people surrounding you who want to support you and want to care for you, want to hold space for you, and all those things, it shows that you actually have a lot of love for self, including in your relationships. And
Mm.
so these external relationships are an example and an indication of where we are within our own self-love. I mean, the whole journey, this whole life journey is about self-love. It's about realizing that, you are a God being, you are a goddess being, and that you should love yourself and appreciate yourself unconditionally,
Mm.
regardless of your life and your choices and all that kind of stuff. Like, you have to love yourself unconditionally, accept yourself unconditionally. And when you get to that point, and as you approach getting to that point, then you'll see that your relationships improve. And
Mm.
then the way people show up in your life improves. But
Mm.
when you see drama and it's a bunch of discord and you're trying to force people to show up and all that, that's an indication of a lack of love of self.
Mm. Yeah. Thank you so much, Rakim Sekou. I really appreciate you. Take care.
Absolutely. Thank you. Peace and
Okay.
blessings.
Bye.